Sponsored by Speck Products. Let me be straight with you. There are 15 other devices on my desk that excite me more than Apple's latest silver slab. Because I chose a business that reflects my own predilection for novelty. And folding phones, retro recorders, and laptops that unfold into mobile workstations are much better at stoking that fire than predictable, pragmatic progression. But that same safe iteration is what's made the iPhone the must-have device for most folks in the US who aren't like me. Normal folks who see their phone as an unsexy necessity, like a toaster oven.
I said to her, if you think I'm going to spend $60 for a damn toaster oven, you're out of your mind.
Sure, Android still dominates the smartphone space globally, but beyond those anodyne metrics of percentage points traded to and fro, Americans of means long ago reached a cruel consensus. The default phone is the one with the fruit on the back, and the telltale blue text bubbles that come along with it. As someone who prefers diversity in devices, I don't like it, and I don't carry an iPhone myself. But at this point, culturally, it's stupid to try to refute it. So 3 weeks after I picked up my review device, it's time to wrap up my 3-video arc on the iPhone 15 Pro Max with a look at why it's winning and where it still has a ways to go. Yeah, if you were confused as to why I didn't cover battery life or call quality in my last iPhone video, that's because it was more experiential essay than review, as the lack of the latter word in the title demonstrates. Yeah, I didn't call it a review. Anyway, those fundamentals, they're great. First thing I did with my 15 Pro Max was toggle that always-on display to make sure I wasn't going easy on the battery, and I continued that no-mercy philosophy on a road trip from North to South Carolina. It didn't matter that my girlfriend's car was still rigged for lightning charging instead of USB. The Max lasted 5 hours of constant GPS navigation and still had 42% left in the tank when we got where we were going. I never went easy on that display brightness either. More often than not, I maxed it out, which made it incredibly readable outdoors. Useful when you're reviewing the photos from last night's bar crawl at an outdoor brunch table in the direct, punishing sunlight of the next day's hangover. I'll come back to the camera in a bit, but let's button up the battery with a hit on the hot heat. You likely heard about the new iPhone's thermal issues. In fact, it was a big enough flash in the pan for Google's head of hardware to mention it in my recent interview with him.
The system, they can certainly get warmer, as you've seen with recent product launches.
Yeah, I did experience that phantom heating of the phone during my testing, but the battery life didn't seem to take a hit as a result. I did all my testing on the battery before the software patch landed to correct that thermal issue, so I expect endurance for most folks, on the Max at least, should impress. Of course, it should be said that I expected that on the 14 Pro last year as well, and that phone's battery ended up disappointing pretty much everyone I've ever talked to. So this is something to keep a close eye on in the coming months. If you saw my last iPhone video, you'll know I'm a big fan of the action button that puts my girlfriend a single shortcut away. So I've been talking on the phone a lot more than I typically do, and that means I've become grateful for voice isolation. I adore this feature. It separates your voice from the background and keeps you clear regardless of the cacophony that surrounds you in a city such as mine. And it's a system-level filter. So it doesn't matter if you're on a FaceTime or a traditional voice call, whatever. At one point, I wish I'd been filming this, I was talking on the phone while standing between a fountain and a road where a wailing ambulance was roaring by, and my girlfriend said she could only hear me. It was incredible. It reminded me of the old Crystal Talk noise reduction that so impressed me on Motorola phones of a decade ago. But speaking of other phones, if you have a Pixel 7 or newer, you can try a similar feature called Clear Calling, which Google dropped back in December for Pixel phones. Now, I did not find that those audio enhancements translated to Apple's AirPods Pro, which picked up all kinds of background noise, regardless of whether isolation was enabled. Frankly, I hate talking to people on AirPods because of this. And it's one example of Apple's limitations. As excellent as it is at so many things, it's still fallible. And there are plenty of things I don't like about carrying the iPhone. I'll give you those in a second. First, I gotta let you know that this video is sponsored by Speck. But don't click away if you like cases, because Speck is solving a problem I ran smack into on my 100-mile bike ride when a pothole sent my phone careening to the concrete. To keep your phone safe, Speck developed ClickLock. It starts with MagSafe's magnetic simplicity and builds on it with a lock that clicks into place, hence the name. With a ClickLock case and accessory, your iPhone isn't slipping or sliding anywhere, but you can still mount and release it easily with one hand. Of course, that doesn't help you if you drop your phone just pulling it out of your pocket, as I've been known to do. But Speck's no-slip Presidio 2 grip helps you stay hands-on. And if you do drop it, every case is lined with air capsules to cushion the crash, while the raised bezel protects your screen from scratches. And to keep your case from getting too gunky, Speck's soft touch coatings have Microban antimicrobial product protection to keep them clean. Speck has cases with different levels of grip and useful features for all lifestyles and for iPhones new and old. Hit them up at the link in the description to spec out your iPhone today. All right, what don't I like about carrying the iPhone? Well, I won't belabor the parts that haven't changed much, like how little control you actually have over your home screen's layout, or how if you reject the iOS orthodoxy of anxiety-inducing badges everywhere, you're forced into the world's most chaotic notification center. They're mostly personal preferences. It's the objectively worse experiences I'm eager to leave behind when I move on to my next review phone. The autocorrect that still insists on trying to fix you, and other keyboards let you say what you mean. The stubborn scourge of eSIM, which a year later is still more cumbersome and less reliable if you're switching to or from anything but another iPhone, and which transfers too much control of your phone number from the user to the carrier. But paradoxically, most of the things I don't like about the iPhone are oddly familiar. Put simply, the iPhone has bugs too. On a MagSafe dock, it will periodically make the charging sound as though you've just dropped it on, even when it's been there for hours. In the middle of taking the coastal Carolina photos and videos I'll show you shortly, the Max at one point just gave me a black screen when I called up the camera. I had to restart the app more than once to get it back. A similar issue happened when boarding a ferry back here in New York, when the ticketing app wouldn't come back into focus until I restarted it. And even if that's an app issue, that reinforces my point. Sometimes apps are imperfect, regardless of platform. It's not just Android. And, maybe unsurprisingly, I can draw a line from foldables to the iPhone as well. You know how I sometimes complain that many apps don't seem to know what to do on a foldable screen because it's larger or wider than they're expecting? Well, Apple doesn't have a foldable, but it does have a dynamic island with unique capabilities that require specific coding. And over a year after Apple introduced it, I'm surprised how many developers still don't take advantage of it. And it's inconsistent. Some of them say they have support, like Uber Eats, but many of us don't see that in real-world use. In other words, phones are gonna phone. They're the most complex devices we carry on a daily basis, and none of them is going to be perfect. But you know, despite my complaints about customization and consistency and, sure, cost, Apple's time in grade really shows through in so many aspects of the iPhone experience. If you watched that Google interview I did, you'll see me react skeptically to Rick Osterloh when he calls Google's Pixel division young at 7 years old.
Versus other people. Yeah, it's been 7 years since our very first launch.
But comparatively, he's right. Apple's been doing phones for 16 years. And I want to get deeper into this in a future video when I have more time to make it, because it truly deserves it. The ecosystem is a massive part of the iPhone's value. It's little things I've talked about before, like being able to toggle my hotspot right from my MacBook, or a new one, queuing up a video call and having my phone wake up to remind me, hey, I can be a wireless camera that's way better than that crappy webcam on your MacBook. You know, these are special moments. Apple definitely deserves some of the guff it's gotten for its choice of words in the past. You know, courage. But moments like these are true examples of surprise and delight. And speaking of delights, let's close it out with the camera. In my last iPhone video, I mentioned that camera comparisons don't provide the kind of consistent context they once did. And it was validating to hear MKBHD agree with me on that point. Thanks, Marquez. So after I did those initial zoom comparisons, I left the other phones in my bag, and I put the iPhone to use in a variety of scenarios at a range of distances in almost every mode available. While other phones have given me exquisite results with structures and landscapes, and even let me turn photos into portraits after the fact, no, that's not technically new, it's been a long time since any of them have made photographing humans so effortless, so consistently great. That's without needing to take a million variations, without needing to wait for the right light, without needing to be anywhere close to sober, without, in other words, really even trying. And when it comes time to share those photos, well, of course, AirDrop just drives home that ecosystem advantage even harder. Now, it is Techtober. We are going to be bombarded with new phone releases almost every week until the month is out, and we'll see how well the new Google Pixel measures up soon. But for now, features like those I talked about and shots like these I just kept taking are a huge part of why the iPhone is winning. And it's tough to argue that it doesn't deserve it. If you're unsubscribing on the heels of a comment calling me a shill for saying that, well, that's just the life I signed up for, and I will take the hit. If you're sticking around, though, there are rewards in store in the form of pixels, wearables, and no fewer than 4 foldables to cover before the year is out. You can subscribe at The Mr. Mobile on YouTube to see those, and follow me at that handle and at Captain2Phones on Twitter and Threads to catch up between videos. This video was produced following 3 weeks with iPhone 15 review samples provided by Apple, but as always, the company received no copy approval, editorial input rights, or early preview of this review, nor did it provide any compensation in exchange for its production. I did reach out to Apple for comment on the issues I mentioned, and if the company responds, I will pin a comment below. Until next time, from Michael Fisher, thanks for watching, and stay mobile, my friends.